I'm Rachael Orose. I'm the Executive Director at Words Alive. How many of you may have struggled to learn how to read? How many of you, when asked, say, yes, I'm a reader? Each of us has our own connection to reading. We have our own definition of reading and how it intersects with our lives. And that's really, really important because reading is the key to unlocking magical lands, faraway places, and our future. It's how we navigate our career. It's how we connect with one another. It's how we participate in community and in our society. It's how we help our children. But we have a problem here in San Diego. Half of our kids do not read on grade level. This is data from the San Diego Council on Literacy. You can dig into it and it's going to tell you 50% of our kids roughly do not read in grade level here in San Diego. Half. When you start to dig into the data and look at it by race, ethnicity, geography, family income, the data gets even worse. We have a crisis here in San Diego. Our children do not have the keys to unlock their future. Why is this happening? A colleague of mine would tell you it's not rocket science, but it is a little brain science. I'm not a neuroscientist, so I'm going to boil this down and apologize to those who are. But in short, when we're born, our brain is not wired to read. Our brain is wired to do the different component parts of reading. We have to connect it together. It's how we start to teach kids. If you think about little kids, there's a letter, it looks like a squiggle, and all of a sudden it has a name. We've connected that squiggle to the fact that it has a name in our brain, and then we connect it to a sound that it might make, and then we connect it to a meaning that it might have. But we have to build those connections. What you might think about reading is like a rope. It's not just sounding out letters and sounds. We have to braid together vocabulary and decoding and language structure and background information so we can pull meaning from what we read. We have to help our kids make these connections. You know what's really hard? Helping kids make connections, because we have to lean in. We have to spend time with our children. We have to give them opportunities to understand and pull from different parts of their surroundings to really make those connections to build a strong and skilled reader. Now I want to take a second and take a step back. Let's think about the kids in our community who, in addition to trying to make connections of neural pathways, are also wondering where their next meal comes from. They're wondering where they're going to sleep tonight. They're worried about their family or their safety. The complexities of poverty and the systemic oppression and systems we have in our community make learning to read, which is already hard, so much harder. It sounds pretty miserable, right? It's a crisis that's facing us, but I have some great news. This is a story we can change. This is something that we can not only just change, we can change in this generation. We do not have to be a community where our kids are not connected to the power of reading. Just this week, there was legislation passed in the state of California to introduce better ways to help our teachers learn how to teach reading. We have movements happening here in San Diego to help our teachers, help our families learn how to read. Where Words Alive comes in is we help children build the identity of a reader. You have to want to read to do this really hard thing. You have to pull from someplace inside of you while your teachers are trying to help you braid together this rope. So at Words Alive, we focus on habits, behaviors, attitudes, and access around reading. For 25 years, we've connected children, teens, and families in San Diego to that power of reading. This past year, we read with just shy of 7,000 children from Oceanside to the border. We do this through 3 core programs. I'm going to dig into a little bit of each of them in a second. We read aloud in elementary classrooms, we run book clubs for teens, and we help parents connect reading and play with our littlest ones. Let's first look at where we read in San Diego. This is a map of adult literacy rates here in San Diego. It was just released. The darker the blue color, the more adults in that particular community who are struggling with reading. National data tells us 1 in 4 adults in the United States is functionally illiterate. 1 in 4. Functionally illiterate means you probably can sound out the words, but you may not be able to pull the meaning from what you've read. And that's what's really important. So Words Alive prioritizes the communities in San Diego where the literacy crisis is the greatest. We've been talking about the Sustainable Development Goals, clearly quality education. There's even a sub-bullet that talks about the importance of universal literacy and numeracy. But literacy is a tide that raises all ships. When you improve your literacy rates and understanding what you read, we see impacts across the Sustainable Development Goals, and we see that needle to really start to move. Let's talk about our family literacy program. I've never met a parent that doesn't want the absolute best thing for their kids, ever. What we find, though, is that parents aren't experts in brain science. So we run a 6-week workshop with parents with young ones, 5 and under, where we help them connect reading to the power of play. They're 45-minute workshops. We spend 20 minutes reading a picture book. And if you've ever read a picture book with a kid, you wonder, what are you doing for 20 minutes? And the answer is we're helping parents and caregivers and aunts and uncles and sometimes older siblings encourage the young one's brain to make those connections. We coach them through how do you make those connections through telling of a story. Then we do an activity together. We create a craft or a project. What kid doesn't love a craft? We create a craft or a project yet again to inspire this behavior around reading and this positive memory. And you have an artifact that you can look at and you said, I did that with my uncle. Isn't that really great? And you're starting to build a positive attitude around reading. 94% of the caregivers that come through this program tell us they are more confident in their ability to be their child's first teacher. That's incredibly important because we need their help when it gets hard, because learning to read gets really, really hard. We also find in our family literacy program, families that participate for 6 weeks read together 1 day more a week. I'm a mom of a 7-year-old. Ask me to do one more thing, and I think that the tower is going to tip over. Our families have prioritized reading and are able to really build this as a habit in their homes. Our largest program is our Read Aloud program. Through our Read Aloud program, we have a volunteer that's paired in a classroom for 30 weeks during the school year. It's the same volunteer with the same kids. Think of them as a reading role model. They're in the classroom, they're engaging, they're reading stories, no tests, no quizzes. They're there for the fun and the joy. 90% of the teachers say just having this reading role model in the classroom increases their students' confidence as a reader. 80% of the kids in this program tell us they read more because their Words Alive volunteer was in their classroom. Longest standing program where we started is called our Adolescent Book Group. It's a book club for teens and tweens. It's exactly what it sounds like. We have a group of volunteers, not an individual volunteer, but a couple volunteers and a group of teens and tweens who wrestle with text, and they really engage with text together. I love Harry Potter. That's not what we read. We read books that reflect the lived experiences of the kids in our program. They can see themselves in the title, in the storyline, in the protagonist, in the author's story. We do this intentionally because if you can see yourself in what you read, you will recognize that it is for you, and then you can use that tool to see the world. 77% of our teens say they find the books that we read interesting because it tells a story with which they're familiar, and they want to read more. 77% of teens. Have you ever met teenagers? I don't know that you can get 77% of teens to do anything. But we're really excited about it. Habits, behaviors, attitudes around reading, and access. So through all of our programs, children and teens and families own more books for their personal libraries. They get to keep those books in their homes. We distribute between 20 and 25,000 books a year, and we pair each of them with school supplies and a craft activity. There's data that tells us that books in a home increase reading scores. There's a correlation there. Great, but here's the thing about this data. Just having books in your home isn't what makes your reading scores go up. It's that your family is valuing reading as an activity. And they have tools in their home that they can do that, which is why distributing books is so important for Words Alive, so we can help build those resources. What's the secret? The secret to Words Alive is our volunteers. They are our lightning rod. They are what makes this happen. Last year, we rode with 7,000 kids in San Diego. We have 10 staff members. We're supported by between 800 and 1,000 volunteers from 20 some odd states and 20 some odd countries investing in San Diego's youth, because we recognize together we can change this story. Words Alive believes that we can provide an on-ramp for people to be part of the solution. And I think that's really important because we have a community crisis that requires a community solution. Our volunteers read aloud weekly for 30 minutes, or like this local company, they come together for an hour and they pack learning kits with us. They write our curriculum and they write our social media. Our volunteers run book clubs and they run our finance committee. Words Alive is volunteer founded and volunteer powered. It's the core of what we do. If you look at literacy data and statistics going back a generation, you're going to see headlines. And the headlines are going to say 2-point improvement, 2-point decline, 2-point improvement, 2-point decline. It's this constant pendulum. We have not broken out of this. So what Words Alive does is we mobilize people to be part of the solution to see if we can change that narrative. So what can you do to help? First, to be a community that reads, we need to read. I'd like to invite you all to get caught reading. Read books someplace a kid can see you. High five that, it was me when I was a kid, that very nerdy kid at the playground that's reading a book next to the slide, because they are inviting the opportunity to strengthen that skill. Ask a child who's reading what they're reading. Why is it interesting? Why do they not like it? Really build those connections. When you are thinking about gifts for nieces and nephews and grandchildren, take them to a bookstore, plug for independent bookstores, take them to a bookstore and choose a book together. Show them the value of reading. And while you're at it, go visit our libraries and then make a big noise that we need to keep them around, because they're institutions that allow access to these powerful solutions. The second thing you can do is kind of fun. A couple weeks ago, Words Alive received a donation of books. I want to challenge you to take one and give it to a child. Whether it's a child that you know, or it's a child that you see on the trolley, at the bus stop, at the grocery store, hand that book to a child and encourage them to read. Let's say you don't cross paths with a child. Look for those little free libraries. There are these boxes, wooden boxes that are popping up in neighborhoods throughout the county. All you have to do to access it is open the door and slide the book in. It is that easy to change the story on literacy rates in San Diego. This is a problem we can solve, and I really want to invite you to be part of the solution. Thank you so much.